Hey, I've had a few people ask me how I went about putting my GSX-R1000 bodywork onto a second gen SV650. So let's take a little walk around and I'll show you how I did it. I have had a few people, even people at tech, ask me what kind of bike this is. So as ubiquitous as the SV650 is, it does really, I think, transform with the GSX-R1000R bodywork on it. So you know what it looks like. We'll get into the details with the bodywork off, and then I'll show you how it mounts together. All right, so there she is, all stripped down. And I will work from the front to the back and let you know what needed to be done here. So this here is the fairing stay for a GSX-R1000RR. Everything is 2017 plus. There are some adjustments that need to be made. You can buy these pretty darn cheap off of eBay. I think it was maybe 60 bucks or something like that. They are cast aluminum and quite a bit lighter than those that came with the SV, and also, hey, they fit. So no real fabrication needed to be made, but there were some adjustments, and I'll walk through those. First of all, getting it attached to the mounting points where the SV bracket was. The good news is this is a appropriate place to get started. Everything will work out fine. But you do need to know that the opening here is wider for the Gixxer bracket than the SV mounting area. So as you can see here, I used a couple plastic washers, one on each side, top and bottom, to make sure that that gap is filled up and we can get it torqued down and in place. The other thing to do with that is that the locations of the holes are slightly different. The SV holes are about 1/8 of an inch farther apart than the GSX-R holes are, so you need to slot top and bottom on both sides in order for it to line up. You can't, at least I wouldn't advise taking all of it out of just the top or the bottom, because there's really not all that much aluminum around that hole. So slotting top and bottom is safer, in my opinion. If you're using stock clocks, there's a few things you'll need to do. This is just an aluminum strap, basically. Cut to length. You drill the holes for the studs. But what you're going to want to start here is that pin at the bottom of the gauges. That lines up perfectly in the hole that we have down there that comes in the Gixxer bracket, but nothing lines up on top. So that's why you need to make this bracket. And then you also need to cut out a notch there. Not too far, maybe 5/8 of an inch or something like that into it, and that will give you plenty of clearance for the plug, and everything lines up really nicely. You can actually see the plug just barely touches the windscreen here. So that's all you need for that. So I mounted the upper fairing here, and that's where I started everything and just kind of worked my way down as I needed to modify and make things. So bolting it up here and setting it around, attaching the bottom, and then kind of blocking it up to line everything up. On each side, you'll need to drill and tap some holes and make your own brackets. Again, this is just, you know, a piece of aluminum sheet that I cut and bent. This is generally the area you're going to want it, but be careful because there are some gussets on the back side of the frame, and you don't want to really drill into those. That could mess you up a bit. So just be careful and take your time. So I've drilled and tapped that hole to fit the hardware that I have. And what you're going to want to do is, you know, make sure on each side that you're making your bracket appropriately wide so that the bodywork's not touching the frame. It's not touching the radiator. Good news is even on these 03 radiators, which are wide, they still fit just fine. It's real close, but it really fits good. So yeah, lining everything up, setting it on there. I had my hole drilled into the recessed area on the upper fairing for the Gixxer bodywork, and then just marked in my hole, as you can see with the red ink still in there, and drilled it accordingly. Make sure you do have enough room for the Zeus fastener clip. You know, if this bend was any closer, it wouldn't work out. I'd have to, you know, rebend something. But actually, it just tended to work out first time. So that's good news. I do the same thing on the other side, of course. The same offset and everything will work out just fine. For the bottom fairing, obviously it attaches to the top fairing, but I did make another bracket here. So you can see I used the location of the holes and even the hardware from the kickstand. And again, just pretty simple piece of aluminum here. I do need to cut it away a little bit there and do some minor bending. But yeah, there's a hole that attaches to the recess area on the belly pan for that. And yeah, for that, I just used the push pin type fasteners, plastic ones, worked out just fine. Going around to the other side, you'll see the brackets identical, and I don't have any brackets on this side. It tends to be fairly good. That might be a winter project, just to add yet another bracket to this side to make it just a little sturdier. There really isn't any place here that's super handy for the bracket. It could possibly use this area, but we'll see how it goes. But it's served me just fine without the bracket, and we'll see. Depends on what kind of time I have, right? Then for the subframe, this is a 05 or newer rear subframe. 03s have some different dimensions to it, and they're also heavier, which is why I changed the subframe on this one. What you will definitely have to do is cut this square stock bar here on both sides, because the bodywork doesn't come nearly that low. You can see where the paint's a little worn away there, where the bodywork actually comes up against the frame. I love doing little things like this. Yeah, you could just cut it off perpendicular or whatever, but I wanted to make it look a little more intentional, so slash cut. Anyway, I'm a stickler for that kind of stuff, although it doesn't really matter functionally. What does matter is getting some kind of subframe that will allow you to mount the bodywork up here. So this is the second design that I did, and I have all the I have a PDF, the 1:1 scale. If you're interested in building the same thing or something similar, yeah, maybe I would have used rivets if I was doing yet a third version, but this does the trick, so it's staying. But basically, it is pretty strong. I mean, it does have some give to it, but it's super lightweight. It's just 3/4 aluminum angle iron, and everything was done literally with a drill press and a hacksaw. So nothing that's going to require any advanced sort of machining or anything like that. Just a matter of taking your time and getting things lined up right. So Yeah, triangulated. It is sturdier than it looks, probably. Well, that went quickly. All right, so here is the bodywork mounting from the outside in a little more detail. So starting from the top, I only used 4 of the mounting positions for the windscreen. I think that's completely sufficient for that. As you can see, there's a real close fit here with the gauges. It just seals up really nicely. I'm glad that worked out. I use these Light-Tech mirror covers for a little bit of bling, quite honestly. They are kind of a pain in the butt, but boy, they do look nice, in my humble opinion. So there's a couple screws that go into bosses here, and I'll show you here. And then they just go through the fairing stay. As you can tell, this is where the hole would be if you were going to mount yet another bolt to that, but everything is super rigid. It's really not going anywhere. Not worried about that in the least. As we come through here, the mounting in the back here, so you can see this recess is pretty deep, and there's not a lot of room around it. So I pulled the D-ring off of the Zeus fastener, and now it just takes a tool, but it's just a flat blade screwdriver and a 1/4 turn, and you're loose. Zeus fasteners, 1 on each section there. And then, as I mentioned before, these here. So that does it for for most of the body work. And then the back, I left the seat off here because I just wanted to illustrate a couple things. There is some trimming that you need to do on actually the upper fairing and the rear bodywork. There's a tab that would be right here that sticks up as a mounting point for the Gixxer subframe. Cut that off because when you put the seat on, it's going to interfere. So trim that. And the other trimming you need to do is over here. There's a little wing that's supposed to blend up into the tank. I don't know if it's supposed to look like the air intakes on a MotoGP bike or what, but those will need to come off. So I just really tried to kind of maintain the curvature here. And that's how I decided to cut mine off. So, you know, and also in that way, you don't really see anything that was sticking up. There's no radius there from the old section or anything. So I just taped it up and gave it a nice cut there with a Dremel, actually. So did actually a pretty clean job. With the belly pan, another thing I want to mention, I used the adhesive backed heat shield because the exhaust does come quite close on the other side, and that's just a little insurance to make sure that you're not gonna damage your bodywork or your paint or whatever. Push pins here, I think that's all been covered, so there it is. Well, that's the way she looks. All in all, not a, it's certainly not a plug and play. There's going to be some work that you need to put into it, but really a drill press, a cheap sheet metal brake from Harbor Freight, a Dremel, as I mentioned, and that's really about it. That's all it took. Yeah, you can do it too. All right, I hope you enjoyed the video. Please follow for more.